Okay, just making sure the mic's working. Um, okay, all set up. Here we go. Oh, Mel, see, learning from me, man, that makes me nervous. The pen that I'm working with in Clip Studio Paint right this moment is the mapping pen that is included in Clip Studio Paint. No tricky customized brushes or anything like that at this point. I was using my custom brush a minute ago, though. But again, that's also based off of one that's on board with Clip Studio Paint. I just came in and tweaked it. And the only other big tip I would give people is I do a lot with hotkeys. Like I've got a hotkey that makes layers on the fly. So if I think I'm going to do something where I'm going to screw up, or there's a possibility I could screw it up, I'll go ahead and hit that hotkey and it'll slap me down a brand new layer. And if I screw it up, at least I'm not screwing up anything around it. Been drawing way too much. Shifting to ink and paint. Need to get some practice in. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I still have a little bit of interiors to do, but today seemed like kind of a cover day, so. I saw that you had some artist seditions going on. Gotta be learning some inking stuff from some of that. I forget which ones that I saw you with. These days I'll have to break out my camera and show off some of my new acquisitions. I got the Star Wars one not long ago. It's got some great old stuff in it, Silver Age stuff. And then I got the Kevin Nolan one, um, which I've actually had for a minute, and I'm kind of waiting because I wanted to get on camera and open it on screen, on camera. But yeah, there's a guy on eBay that had a few of them. And he was kind of blowing them out cheap. Nope, too much. Yeah, that's what I like about digital. Back way out. I have some stuff on order. You'd probably be interested in this, Mel. You read every art instruction book in the world about how to draw comics, right? And they all say the same thing. If you make a mistake, you can just paint over it with Pro White and then just ink back over it after it's dry, like nothing happened. And anybody that's had any experience with Pro White knows that is a complete and total myth. That is a fabrication. That is PR, if I've ever heard any. If it did ever like that, it has not worked like that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I am told that what I have on order, oh man, I'm going to have to pause this. Hang on. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, I'm back. And what I was told that I have on order is basically the holy grail of inking supplies. That mythical whiteout. I'm going to test it, see if it works on some actual paper and pen pieces. We'll see how it holds up. But I am told that it's supposed to be one coat coverage, and then you can let it dry and ink right back over it with a pen nib, mind you, what I was told, and then it will not be a problem. And I'm like, wow, if you did actually find that, I would be shocked. Like the Holy Grail, like I said. Anyway, sorry about the phone call in the middle of it. One of those hazards of doing this in the middle of a common room. Yeah. I'm gonna take all that back. All the way back to there. Nope. Even further. There we go. Forgetting my light source. Where is the light source, you ask? How do you know where the light source is? Well, here is the Inker Pro chip that I always use. Okay. I look at the nose. Okay. You see how you got a dark line on one side and a lighter line on the other side? That means the light is coming from this way. So then at that point, I just keep that in mind. Tighten up these glasses a little bit. So yeah, that's the reason why I got rid of all those lines on that side of his face. Okay, because if the light's coming from this way, then that means all the lines are going to be over there. Now that'll be a little clearer when I come in with the tones, and that's another reason why I've simplified it. Somebody was telling me, like, man, you should pass on some of this stuff and let people know why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, you got to keep your light source in mind constantly. Uh, It's one of the driving forces of why you go heavy in one spot and why you go light in another, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You want to basically do it in such a way that if you blur your eye out and look at it, it starts to look like a shaded drawing would. Like, okay, like for instance, I'll turn all the pencils off here. Okay, and we'll look at this. And we'll go all the way back. Like, look at this line work up here in his forehead and stuff when we zoom all the way out. See how that takes on that same effect of like side of the pencil kind of gray shading when it's all the way out? That's the effect that you want. You're trying to create the effect of a continuous tone medium without actually using a continuous tone medium, because the printing process that they were using was so crappy and so cheap that this is what you knew would shoot. Right hand heavy, so your light source always seems to be on the left side of the page. You know, if as long as that works out at the end of it, I got no problem with that. I also have a hotkey set up to do what you just saw me do, which was just flip it. So you get that mirror image effect. 92% of the world is start at the left side of the page. Um, actually, coincidentally enough, the first thing that I inked on this 2-page spread, let's get all the way back out to it and flip it the other way. The first thing I inked on this page is this damn spot back here. So I guess I conformed exactly to the pattern that you're talking about. Because that got inked first. Yeah, anybody that's looking that's interested, since I did that, everybody kind of wants to look. I grant has to clean up because I do these each in their own folder, and like you'll see parts where the robot's like running into her hair and stuff like that. I got to clean all that stuff up. Um, but I generally do each element in its own folder, so that I can switch it all off and not be distracted. Opposite for left-handed people. That doesn't surprise me. I knew a guy once. One of Scott Williams's old assistants was a lefty, and always you read that Betty Edwards Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain book. If you haven't read it, I'm sure you've seen it. Anyway, the basic idea is that the right side of your brain is the more creative and the side that can draw, and the left side of your brain is the one that controls language and linguistics and things like that. So if you develop your ability to shift over to the right side of your brain, it's easier for you to be able to draw, is the idea. Now, I don't know if I believe in all that as far as all that goes, but some of her ideas, uh, they will help you at least in the beginning of your drawing journey. Um, you will learn a lot about. You'll learn a lot about how to observe closely without realizing that that's what you're being taught necessarily, if that makes any sense. Like people that have seen the Karate Kid know what I'm talking about. Sand the floor. You don't know, but he's doing something here. You might not have noticed it. Yeah. Yeah, I asked that lefty inker if he found it easier to ink. Uh, he didn't find it to be helpful to him. Yeah, paint the fence. I actually have a theory about that I put together over many years of dealing with comics and uh, reading about the original comic studio. almost always, if you were in the old days, if you were hired at a comic studio, especially if your drawing skills were still kind of questionable, the way you could get in, almost everybody could get in, lettering, because nobody wants to do it. Um, but lettering is one of those skills that I think directly translates to learning some basic drawing skill, because it's not long when you're lettering before somebody decides to tell you to put some letters and draw them in perspective, you know, and then you learn something about perspective. I think that many of the basic structures on how to draw the human body can be done with letters or variations on letters. I think there was a definite reason why they used to have people start with some of the more non-creative, non-sexy kind of tasks. By the time you've done some lettering for a little bit, you're not afraid of putting ink on board, you know. Whereas I'll give you a confession. When I got into Wildstorm with my samples that I'd done at the time, I could still count the number of pages that I had done, like in both hands, that I'd ever worked on in my life. And here I was inking at one of the hottest studios in the comics industry. Okay, and here's the point where I gotta kind of lean it back a little bit, because my tendency is to over render, and I'm still gonna do gray tones. So you gotta leave some room for that. I do want to check this without the pencils though. At say that size. See, and since I know that the light source is coming from that direction, I can really beef up the shadows in this beard on that side. And then it just reinforces the light source that you're already setting up. People are always like asking me, like, um, how do you create depth? How do you create shadow? And you just got to drop it in. Kind of. The pencil doesn't know how that's going to work out necessarily when he's looking at it in pencil. Because looking at it, it's gray, and trying to picture what it's going to look like by the time you got it in color and everything. That's why you just saw me switch it off, too. Yeah, get the colors to add depth. Yeah. But guess what? If they don't know what they're doing, that doesn't work either. I've seen lots of bad color where it's like, geez, okay. Somebody doesn't understand how to do depth. Alright. Put just enough blanks down here to kind of anchor the image. It looked a little wispy before. Like the beard looked less solid than the rest of his face. So I made an executive decision there to go ahead and get his really do a tone change on the hair a little bit. Now I'm going to come in and bring in some highlights. They're using different printing standards as I did with some of the really extreme book because their colors were too valiant. Oh. I don't know. I've always just inked the same kind of way and tried to keep certain qualities. Like right now, the reason why I came in and darkened all that, and now I'm going to lighten it up, has a different effect when you cut white into black like this. See, now we're getting a definite shift in the shadow. I can bring out some of these highlights here. I think about it more like a painter than I guess I used to in the old days. Trying to balance stuff out. One of the things that I always still lean on is that if it works in black and white, if you can get it to work in black and white, there's very little that color is going to be able to do to screw it up. Now that's not always the case, but most of the time, if you know what you're doing, you can kind of make it colorist proof. Okay. I just created a new layer because I'm going to do his hair. This is another one of those holdovers from the early days. And people are like, what was it like to work at Wildstorm back in the day? And like, man, it was cool, but it was cutthroat too. You know, like if you didn't have your chops down, you better get them down. Quick, fast, in a hurry. Wasn't anybody going to put up with any substandard ink, substandard colors, or substandard any of the rest of it. So, Yeah, if your skills were lacking, you better shape up quick, man. See, I don't like that. Damn it. And take that all out. Extra pressure being the only student mostly on schedule. Yeah. Now everybody's going, why'd you pull that out? Why'd you pull that out? Mm, yeah, the light source again. That light source thing wasn't working for me. So that's the nice thing about digital too. We can take another whack at it. I definitely like working in layers. Sometimes it makes things a lot easier. That's why you'll see me a lot of times. I just come in and black the whole thing and then do another layer with the help of it and do highlights. But especially with hair, you'll see here in a minute. I'll do another layer over the top. Once again, we will pay attention to our light source. Get out our proper brush. There we go for doing this. Rob Norton, how you doing, sir? Working on this cover of yours. thick, fluffy, feathered locks of hair, were they mandatory at Longstorm? Um, Pretty much everything. Well, look, I can only speak to my experience, okay? And I can tell you that early on, there was a big pressure uh, to try and become Scott Williams, like right out of the box. Like they wanted you to be Scott Williams light real quick. Um, and my natural style wasn't really Scott Williams. I was trying to do like a Terry Austin sort of thing. Now, granted, I didn't want to do things. I wanted to do some stuff a little different than Terry did, and I was interested in learning those things from Scott. But it wasn't really where I was coming from initially. I was still doing the Scott Williams thing. Yeah, no pressure there. I even told Scott Williams that too. That like everybody expects me to be you, and he's like, yeah, that's just entirely unrealistic. Like, I've got a dozen years experience on you, and you're just not gonna be doing like that right out of the box. You just won't. And I said, well, what should I say to them when they tell me this? He didn't have a very good answer for me one way or the other. So yeah, like the Spawn card that I inked over Jim Lee. Um, I did that way too early. I think I'd only worked at Wildstorm just a few months, and they were doing those Spawn cards. And I'd asked Jim, like, I had a moment of confidence one day, and I told him that I wanted to try to ink his stuff, this card. And the next thing I knew, he this card, and I was like, oh, I immediately like, oh man, that old saying, like, be careful what you ask for. uh, yeah, like that. Uh, Maybe I'd be able to do a little more. A lot of chicken scratches from Jim. Uh, um, I wouldn't say so. I thought Jim's pencils were really clean, really perfect, terribly intimidating. I didn't really enjoy the experience. I have to say, to some degree, it was nerve wracking. I was so uptight about making sure it was perfect and this and that. Like I'm sure that the work I did was way too stiff. I can see it on it now, looking at it. Like I can tell I was nervous. I don't know what pencils you're looking at, man. Um, when I go online and I look at Jim Lee's pencils, they look like the Jim Lee pencils that I was seeing around the studio. I would not call them scratchy. I would not call them unrefined. Yeah, when I was inking him, it's a much different proposition than, say, inking Rob. Okay. Rob, I'm very comfortable with interpreting, but at this time, this was Jim Lee at the height of the '90s, man, and your boss, by the way. Um, so yeah, this is the guy that picked you out of the pile. Better deliver. Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. It was not easy back then. Like I can see how somebody can look at Neil Adams' pencils and some of the rendering that he does, and he uses a very thin line, and some people will refer to that as scratchy. Um, but I don't think Jim's pencils come off that way at all. I think Jim's pencils goes for that uh, kind of a thicker rendering line look, like based in Byrne and Austin, I think, and if anything, I thought his pencils were super duper super clean. Like I was afraid to mess it up. This is also back in the days too, where you're inking like right on the board. You know, here's this piece that, well, like now would easily fetch thousands of dollars from a collector, and you know it's going to be like that the moment he hits your board. This is, you know, not a low profile gag. It's Jim Lee. Everybody's going to see it, and if it looks like shit, they're going to go, "Who ruined this?" And you don't want to be that name, man. Yes, I did use archival inks. Back then I was using Koh-i-Noor Universal Rapidograph ink because uh, I like ink to flow like the moment I touch it to the board. I don't want to have to sit there and play with it too much to get the damn ink to work. And early on, I had a lot of trouble with that. So when I found an ink flowed, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to use now because I didn't know the some of the tricks you can use to thin out ink yet at that point. Yeah, for about the first year that I was at Wildstorm, You can pretty much count on like most of my stuff, all pinups and trading cards. Wildstorm was really smart in that regard. They would put you on, they start you out on real low stakes kind of stuff and see how you do and get a little mileage in you. The number two Ticonderoga. Really? That's funny. I just started using one of those not that long. And I very much liked it. Kind of hard to stay light with it sometimes, though. It's a pretty dark mark, no matter how well you bear in on it. What I like the most, though, to sketch with is my mechanical pencil, colored pencil leads. I've got, I think it's the uni colored leads. Nice. There's another manufacturer that makes something similar. I played with a bunch, but yeah, I like the colored leads a lot. Messing with those. Um, Watching a lot of Rod Gone drawing videos, and he's always drawing with a ballpoint pen. So lately, a lot of times I've been drawing with a ballpoint pen. And I found a ballpoint pen that does like a light blue, like this stuff I'm making right now. Okay, once again, light source. So if the light source is coming from this side, then that means that this side of this pad is going to be a lot heavier than the other side. So we will thicken up the line, thicken up the underneath. See how that reinforces the light source? Hey, Danny Cruz is here. How you doing, sir? Good to see you. There are like 2 live streams this week you've managed to catch me doing something. Like, wow, people show up when you do this regularly. Look at that. Mm-hmm. Thinking of Wally Wood right now. When in doubt, black it out. Yeah, frames the head a little bit better. I've been trying and trying to not do so many tones as I go, but sometimes I just cannot help myself. Um, Move to lines. Go with that. Oh yeah, we need to do that on multiply. Nope. I guess I'm gonna have to do a separate grab for that. That's okay though. I like 32 better. Let's tinker with the angle a little bit. Okay. Hmm. Nope. Shouldn't have taken that out. Anyway. That's probably about where I'll stop there. Maybe a little bit more there. And his nose a little bit. That's crazy. Neil Adams used the number two Ticonderoga. I never paid attention to that. I always heard him talk about what he was used. Paid attention to what he was using the ink. I didn't realize he had a preferred pencil. Check out what that looks like. Yeah, see, that's working. I like that. A lot of people would look at that and go, "Oh, it's over rendered. It's over rendered." Yeah. Well, what do you want from me, man? Grew up in the '80s, and anything we're doing is worth overdoing. What artists have I been into lately? See, there's guys that I like, but I'm terrible with names now. Um, Dan Mora. Oh my God, that guy's amazing. Um, see, there's other guys too. The newer guys. I'm so bad with names. Steven Segovia. I think he's just pretty exceptional. A lot of the guys that I think of as contemporary guys have been, have already been out of the field for a minute because, they don't get paid. We're talking about sometimes. There's not enough money in the field anymore to really keep anybody in it. It seems like. Uh, oh, there's a guy on Batman right now that I like too. I forget his name. But yeah, more and more the artists that I go to are older artists now. Can't find anything I like in the present, but boy, there's some good stuff in the past that I overlooked and wasn't hip to that I'm messing with now. But yeah, I like Dan Moore's stuff a lot. I watch him on Instagram. Um, I watch a lot of inkers, John Livesay and Adelso Corona, Sandra Hope. Luke Rizzo, my old studio mates from Wildstorm. Sal Regla, he switched over to digital too. He's using Procreate now, I think, with his own brushes, of course, which is how he's avoiding what I call the Procreate. A lot of people use the stock brushes in Procreate, and you can tell it has a look to it. And no matter how much finesse you use or don't use, it seems like it all has a sameness to it. You use Procreate. Are you using your own brushes? Because yeah, the stuff that shoot, I thought you were working traditionally, man. I have seen people avoid that look. Sal Regula uses Procreate and seems to make it work pretty well for him. You know, Macs cost too much money. I'm lucky if I can afford a PC. So, and once upon a time, I got used to using PCs because I would be using some of my software wasn't paid for. You do a lot of redrawing in the program, cool, and then just like lightbox it for your finished product, or I only see working a hybrid workflow these days. I'd like to try Procreate. I don't have anything against it. It just has a sameness to it that I see everybody kind of getting out of it. I don't, that may not be the software's fault. Okay. So really working it back and forth. Uh, Starting Procreate and I print it out and drawing it for a little while and I put it back and drawing it some more. And, yeah. Well, you're probably one of those people that can avoid the Procreate look. I've never seen anything like that. I have seen people do it without that. It's just a lot of people. It seems to strip their line out of it and give you its line instead. Is what I see a lot of. Like, it's giving you this cleaned up sort of thing that I I get the feeling the software does for people because I see it real commonly. But there definitely is a way to break out of that. I've seen people do it. custom ballpoint pen. Yeah. Yeah. I've yet to find a real life brush that acts like the one that I'm using at the moment in clip. I haven't done a lot. It's I've done a lot of playing with this one in clip, but in real life analog brushes, I haven't bought enough flat brushes to see if the theory works. But this brush is a flat brush, almost like a screwdriver. Like it gives me thin lines this way if I go from side to side, but then if I turn the stylus and go up and down with it, it gives me this much thicker, heavier line, like a flat oil brush would. I read an interview with Klaus Janson where he was talking about using a stiff oil brush. And until I got into Clip Studio Paint, I'd always assumed it was a round. And then I designed this brush and started looking at some of these chunky kind of effects I was getting. And I went, oh, okay. That looks a little bit like the kinds of lines he was getting on Daredevil. Maybe it was a flat that he was messing with. But I've yet to explore that with analog tools. I have messed somewhat with using a calligraphy marker, like a chiseled calligraphy kind of marker. And I've gotten varied results with that. Okay, I think I'm gonna finish up inking this pocket here and then probably wrap for the moment. All right, thanks for stopping by, Danny. Good to see you. Okay, well, I'm not a little done on my dude yet to go, but yeah, wrap it up here and get some lunch. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a good one, and I'll try and do this again tomorrow or the next day. All right? Bye.